Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, hello and welcome. It is 4th of July week-ish of 2017. We're finishing up the Starbug this week, and we're getting cracking on the Cyclops, and then we'll pick up another ship. I have 2 or 3 that I'm juggling. I still haven't decided which one it's going to be, so stay tuned for that momentous decision. But let's get back to the Starbug, shall we? And here is the Starbug. When you last saw it, pretty much everything is the same, except I have started to dirty up the white paint. And what I'm doing is I'm just brushing on a little bit of the Comart transparent black and then wiping it off. You know, nothing more precious than that. And just scuffing up the black paint, or the white paint, so that it doesn't look so clean. Trying to wipe the direction of travel, so and just a pass with a Q-tip and then a pass with a t-shirt to kind of wipe it down. There, see, there you go, instant aging, and it gets rid of that stark whiteness of it. It still reads as white because it's much whiter than anything else, but it is not you know, bright white. Now to do the decals, I'm sorry, the name decals and the rest of the white paint. So I brought both of this week's kits outside because it's a nice day. It's only in the upper 80s at noon. You know, it's going to get hotter than that, I'm sure, but it's a nice day. Really cannot stress the good things that happen when you put a flat coat over top of your finish, because it knocks down a lot of the gloss, which can be distracting. It knocked down all the gloss on the vinyl pinstriping, so that all looks more part of the ship now. Plus I can go back now and bring in some highlights of something that is shiny and draw more attention to it. Like, I'm gonna do some dry brushing on the metal parts in the back to kind of bring those back and shiny again. Just a spot here or there, but it really dulls down the metal, makes it look greasy, or makes it look rusted. I can put some Comart smoke in there now and make it look like shiny grease, things like that. You can really start playing with finishes once everything has had a flat finish given to it. And here is the Cyclops. Now I gotta back away to get them all in the picture, and all that I've done is taken 2 big rattle cans of primer colors and just hit it with the base coat. That is, every color put on top of that is just going to accentuate that, but it is a good, you know, if you're going to paint something with a wide brush to try to get in your color masses, those are the 3 basic colors. You have the sand, the orange red skin or hair color, and then the pinkish skin color. And I'm going to let this dry outside as well, because that's rattle can paint, and you know, it needs to dry, obviously. So I may hit these parts with one more pass to kind of get in, because there's lots of crevices to get into. But really liking that Starbug, and the last thing I need to do now is put the landing gear struts in, and that's the next job to do. Let's take it back inside. Okay, if you'll remember, when I built these up, I made 2 different versions. The ones with the shorter piston here go on the front landing gear, and the ones with the longer pistons go on the back landing gear. And I made them all a little long, knowing that I'd have to trim them to put them in place. So what I need to do is put it in place as close as I can, measure how much needs to be snipped off of this top part, and then cut it up and glue it down. So let's do that now. Alrighty then, you see I've got the landing gear springs, or secondary landing gear struts, all installed, and the glue is setting up, and then I'm gonna whack a coat of paint on them, as they're supposed to be the same green as the rest of the landing gear. At least the big wide part of the piston is going to be green, so Like that wide part there I'm going to paint green, but need to let it sit for a while. But I'm just digging how the flat coat covering really receded those pinstripes and really made them look like part of the paint job. Neaterino. Nice. Well, hello and welcome back. It is Wednesday. Took yesterday off. I had what I call an Uncle Albert day. And if you are familiar with the works of Paul McCartney, you know that Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey's song, famously has that line, "I'm so sorry, Uncle Albert, but I haven't done a bloody thing all day." And that's how I treated yesterday. It was Independence Day, so I spent it independent of my normal routine. I unplugged. I did not turn on the computer or check mail or any of that kind of stuff. I just took the day off. Didn't work on the Starbug at all. So we're back at it today, and I got to tell you, we're close to 99.9% done. I've got I don't know whether I showed you since I finished, but I've got the landing gear struts on in place, and I've put a first coat of paint on them, and they need to be touched up. But other than that, that is the last. You can see the back ones in there. That is the last of the work that needs to be done. There's probably the best view of a landing gear. So all I need to do is put some metallic paint on the inside of these pistons and maybe touch that up and then dirty them up a bit to match the rest of the paint scheme. And we'll be ready to stick a fork in this Starbug and call it done. Okay, here is our next subject. These are some screen caps I did from the DVD of Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. And as you can see, the Cyclops here is fairly simple. I mean, there's not a lot of that's all. A lot of that's lighting. There's not a lot of tonality in his skin. It's pretty flat, for lack of a better term. I got some good looks at his face here, and there may be what you could argue is a little bit of eyeshadow going on in here, and obviously some lip color, but the majority of this is lighting. It's not really any, it's not like he has a six-pack painted on or anything, so I don't know how much I should do in the terms of making his skin look realistic and then letting the light worry about the rest of it, or whether I should actively paint in some shading and some musculature. So we'll have to see on that. And legs are obviously just tufted hair, which in the kit are sculpted on. And I don't know, I had an idea, but I don't know how successful it would be to try to you actually use some flocking and find some brown, I don't know whether I'd have to go to a model railroad store or what, but to find some flocking and actually put a fabric or a hair looking, it would end up looking like dust. I mean, it would end up looking like felt or something, but finding some sort of way to indicate this fur on the kit as opposed to simply using the paint. Here is the kit on the table. As you can see, it takes up a goodly amount of space, and I've got a good flat color, skin tone color on all of his flesh, and I've got a flat color on his fur. Now I went in with some black, that would be your Comair smoke, and tried to get some detail going on in there. It's moderately successful, but I'm wondering if I shouldn't try to find some way to put some flocking on that, or some substitute hair to, like I said, to give the an illusion of hair rather than just using what's sculpted on here. But we're starting with flat colors, and then we'll work our way around. I got the hoof color, the hair color, the skin color, mouth, teeth, horn, and fingernails and a little bit of painting in the mouth, but we'll go from here. Okay, I just got back from the local model train supply store, which is a bit of a haul because it's not exactly next door. And I've got a couple products here that I'm trying out. This more orangey coarse turf and this tanner static grass flock. And what I've done is I've simply sprayed them on a bit of plastic, a piece of plastic tube here, and I'm trying a couple different adhesives and a couple different colors and a couple different textures and all of that kind of stuff, because I want to try it out here on the cheap piece of plastic before I move it over to the expensive resin Cyclops. What I'm trying to do, in case you're late coming into it, is this is the flocking that I want to try to put over the legs of the Cyclops, since really the rest of it is unremarkable in its paint scheme, but it did have this nappy type of hair on its haunches. So I'm just trying a couple different techniques to see if either one of them will give me what I'm looking for. Let it dry in the sun for a bit. Now the tan, I realize, is the wrong color, but it has the right texture and maybe I can paint over it. So once this dries, I will try to airbrush some of the appropriate brown. You see, you can see there's stuff there. It's just very tan. So if I can get it to dry the way I want it to and not flake off is the important thing, then painting it would be a snap. Okay, the study of flocking continues. What I've got is the same plastic tube you've seen before, and I've sprayed it with spray mount. This is stuff I've used for 30 years for sticking down artwork to boards. It is a little bit stiffer. Now there's actually a level that I can go above this, which is actually contact cement in a spray can. And before all is said and done, I will try that. I just don't have a can of it here to try to see. Now, what I did is I hit the spray mount on this plastic pipe, and then I sprinkled the tan flocking, which is not the same as this orange stuff. It is tan, and it's a finer grain. And then sprinkled that over there, dusted it off, sprinkled it again to get all the bald spots. And you can see it's got that fine, fuzzy effect to it. And this area is something that I sprayed on the pipe, or on this plastic piece, before I put the flocking down, so that you're seeing paint through that. Because I'm trying to see, is it better to paint under it, paint over it, that sort of thing. But what I've got is this really nice, even texture. And I have covered that. I sprayed a flat clear over top of it to kind of glue it down in place, for lack of a better term. And I'm going to let this sit and see, let it dry for a while, and then see how well it takes paint, and see if, how resistant to rubbing off it's going to be, and see if that's going to be our solution. Because I think what's going to look like happening is I'm going to end up spraying the spray mount on the area where you see the hair here, the fur, flocking over top of it, and however much of the color from the underneath shows through, that's great. If I can keep the same color and just give that a fur on top of it, that would be fantastic. But if I need to spray over top of it to give it more color, I want to be able to do that. So I'm going to let this sit, and probably sit overnight, and because there's no sense rushing it. If I rush it and it screws up, it could be because I rushed it, not because it's a bad idea. So I'm going to let this sit overnight, and then tomorrow I'm going to come back and see if I can paint it, or see if it will rub off. Well, it is Thursday, gateway to the weekend, and since I have finished the Starbug, you are well to ask, what is the next ship Lou is going to be building? And I was pondering because I've got a handful of things that I want to get to, and just was trying to decide which one was striking my fancy right now. And I'm pleased to tell you that I have made my decision, and it is, it is this. It is the Bandai 1/44th scale Force Awakens Edition Millennium Falcon. Now I could hear some people after saying, a Falcon? Lou, you said you weren't going to be building any more Falcons. Well, I did. I have no interest in doing the new, I think Bandai's coming out with a 1/72nd scale Millennium Falcon that is, you know, supposed to be made of gold and have a hyperdrive in it, as far as I know, for what they're asking for it. Won't be doing that. I built a Falcon back in the day, the old AMC Falcon, you know, the real fat one. I have it hanging on the ceiling, and, you know, I've built so many of those, I've given them away. I've built the fine molds Falcon, which is 1/72nd scale, and really that solved it for me. I really didn't need to build any more Falcons. It still lived a long and happy life. But there's something about this Bandai Falcon that caught my attention. I saw it at Wonderfest. It was part of the boatload of booty I brought back from Wonderfest, and maybe just seeing it in person was the thing that clinched it for me. I like Bandai kits. They are impeccably designed and impeccably engineered. They go together like a dream. You hardly ever need glue on them. I mean, you can put them together, just press fit, and they'll be done. But as anybody who's built a Falcon knows, it is all about the finish. There's not a lot to paint on the Falcon. I mean, there's an extensive decal sheet, so there will be really no great amount of painting on the Falcon outside of the cockpit and interior, things like that. A lot of it is slop it with black paint and wipe it off, and you get your instant grime and grit. And I'm going to be doing a variation of that on this, but I was playing with it, of course. Well, let me just show you. Okay, here's our patient on the table, and here is the issue that I'm dealing with. I'm trying to find the best way of handling the weathering on it, or the detailing. Now, this is a typical piece, no primer, no nothing, and I did a quick brush with black ink, just Higgins black ink, and then wiped it down. And that's given me the detail that I really like. I kind of like this. But when I carry that over onto the wider areas of the ship, I am less enamored with that. I kind of like what's happening over here, but this was done with the old favorite, or my new favorite, Comart Transparent Black. So I start with those, and I figure out whether or not they're going to work for me. And what I'm running into is, I think that these pieces, to be fair, like every other model, need to be primed first. But if I prime it, and I prime it with a flat paint, then the paint is going to want to suck into the flat paint. It's gonna want to be weathered too much. So, do I weather just the bare plastic? Do I prime it and then weather on top of that? Do I weather it? Do I prime it? Do I paint it gray? Do I put a clear coat on it and then put the weathering over it? That's how I would normally do something like that. A regular model build, I would take this model, I would prime it, I would paint it like the light gray that it's going to be, and then I would put a satin coat over it, and then I would do the weathering on top of the satin coat. And actually, I guess in this case, I would satin coat it. I would put the decals down and weather over top of that, and then flat coat over top of the whole deal. Well, that's normally how I would do a model. The problem with Bandai kits is that they are so impeccably engineered. I don't think they would take the tolerance of basically four coats of paint, even very, very thin coats of paint. So I'm going to have to see what is going to be the best result. What's happening on these, on the big pieces, is the ink or the paint is not wiping off evenly or consistently like it would if it had a satin coat on it. So maybe the secret is just to put a satin coat over these bare pieces, because the ship is 90% of the color. I mean, it's there. All I gotta do is put decals and weathering on it, and you get, like this, you get the Falcon color. So I'm gonna find a typical piece, and I'm going to hit it with a clear coat of satin, and then I'm going to weather over top of that and see what kind of finish I get. And that will determine how I do the rest of the kit. Okay, I believe I found a good representative piece. So what I'm going to do is simply hit this with a satin coat and then go over it with the inks and see if it will wipe off uniformly. And if that works, then I will do it with the rest of the ship kit parts, and that will allow me to build it with a minimum number of coats of paint on it, or coats of anything. Now see, this was bare plastic with the inks down inside of it, but not enough of it stayed in place. So we're kind of, everything that goes into these deep well holes is gonna get a lot of this weathering. So let me try this on this piece and see how it turns out. Okay, here you go. That is the piece that had the satin sprayed on it, and I've done a slightly watered down version of the ink. I didn't do the full strength because I thought that dried too quickly, but watered down ink and then wipe it off pretty quick. Nice even coating. I like that. And if I want to, I can mist that with a gray to bring it up a little bit, but I certainly like the direction where that's going. So let me hit some of these bigger pieces now with the satin. Welcome back to Friday morning, and as you can see by this pile of Falcon I have on the table, I have been progressing with the Higgins staining, the ink staining, and alternating between that and Comart smoke, and wiping it on and wiping it off and doing a little two-step. It's getting there. Some panels I really like, some panels it's not quite as successful on, but the overall effect is what I'm looking for. This probably demonstrates the best of what it will look like when it's done. The black is settling into the panel lines, and the panels themselves are still clean enough or white enough. And I'm not above taking a very light gray and airbrushing that over top of this when this is done. I'm trying to determine now when is the best time to apply the decals for all of the colored panels. I want to make sure I'm done, doing any aggressive wiping on the ship itself before I do that, or else I'll end up wiping off the decals, and I don't want to do that. But yet at the same time, I want the decals to be trapped under enough of the weathering. So that's the quandary that I find myself in, as common place to find myself is in a quandary over a lot of this now. It's a question of whether or not to use the decals or whether to just spray on the colors, because really it's two different colors of gray that could be painted on as easily as anything else. But I'll give the decals a shot and see how well they turn out. I like them on the 72nd scale fine molds. I think the decal worked well on that, so we'll give them a shot here and see how well they work. Maybe what I'll do is take one of these pieces and decal it up and see use it as a test bed for the rest of it. In other news, this is the furry stick that I'm gotten used to calling it the furry stick. Whether you can see that's got a very fine grain or fine mist of, if it ever catches the focus, there you go, of fur on it, of flocking, and I really like that effect. I'm not wild about the color, but I like that effect. So I'm going to see how well this takes to being painted. But I think this might be the solution that I use on the Cyclops' legs. Now I do kind of like that as well, because the Cyclops, the fur on it, if you look at the screen caps again, is kind of nappy and uneven like that. Not nice and smooth like this, but I think I'll start smooth, and if I have to add some of that to the top of it, I will. But let's see how well this takes some paint. Well, I think that's just great. I really like the way that looks, and it took paint like a champ. So what I'm going to do now is remember how I did this, put it all aside, because I need to paint the top half of the Cyclops first and get happy with all of that skin tone, and then put this on because I really want to minimize the handling of it after it's on. I may try to do something down around the hoof area just to try it out, but then I'll be careful not to handle that while I am painting the rest of the top. But I think we've got a great solution here. Now all you got to do is implement it. Of course, the secret is going to be whether or not I can get that spray to hunker down into all of those nooks and crannies. But I think putting a light fur on top of that is going to be tremendous. And I might even go with a little bit of that coarser stuff on top of it, but getting the base coat of that fur, I may try it down around here just on a spot, because like I say, I need to paint the whole rest of him, and I don't want to be bumping the knees and all that kind of stuff while I'm bumping the fur off. Okay, over the last little bit, I've just had a bit of fun with smudging up the Falcon. You can see a little bit darker in front than it is in the back. This can all be evened out. It's all play time at this point. Start putting in the scorching smudges from the back engines. I don't know. It's a mystery to me. If they're going to provide you a cover for this that's solid, why put detail in here? I have no idea. I don't know what that serves, unless somebody is going to make photo etch that you can see through, but they're really, I don't know. If you're going to do that, then you might as well make the photo etch detail to go inside. But anywho, just going through and darkening in some stuff, and a lot of people forget this edge here, but it's important that you paint that edge so that when you put everything together, you don't see a white edge inside your perimeter. So just playing with different spots and darkening up some stuff, and deciding if I'm going to light it, if I do light it, how much lighting I'm going to do, that kind of stuff. It's a no-brainer to put a LED strip back in there, but am I going to do anything with the cockpit or the gun turrets? So that kind of stuff. And that's where I think we're going to leave it for the weekend. And that's going to bring another week to a close here. Maybe light on product, but heavy on procedure, I guess is the term. Doing a little bit of research, figuring out what the best methods are going to be going forward on the Cyclops and on the Falcon. Hey, let's not forget, I finished the Starbug this week, so we do have one model done, and we've got another one started. And like I said, once you figure out the Falcon, once you figure out how you're going to do your finish, you're 90% of the way, because this Falcon is all finish. I mean, yeah, I can knock together the building of it. It's not going to take that long. It's how you finish it, really, that matters. And the same can be said about that Cyclops. It's two colors. It's skin color and it's hair color. And how do you finish those? Well, it took maybe a little bit longer than I was hoping to figure out exactly how I'm going to do the legs. But now that that's been figured out, I can go ahead and do it. And I want to, like I said, I want to hold off on that until I get the skin done, because then I'll be done, manhandling the kit, for lack of a better term. So what maybe looked like on the surface as a little bit of a light week was more of a thinking week, which you can't easily show. So until next week, we'll put some of what I've learned into practice. Till next week, be good to each other, of course. And the sun just came out. Boy, you could tell the sun came out, and boy, everything just brightened up. It's been miserably hot here lately. We went from great weather to upper 90s, so you spend very little time outside. But now you have this big bright sun. So until next week, I digress. Until next week, be good to each other, and we'll pick it up where we dropped it this week.